again, Pete. And
Hi there.
Thank you very much for being able to be with us for part two. We had no idea when we started this morning we were going to do one. However, it feels so appropriate.
Yeah.
So, out of the things that we discussed after the first film, what would you like to start us off?
I think full diaphragmatic breathing, because I've come across kind of a myth around full diaphragmatic breathing. So I'm going to start with a little story, I suppose. When my son was born, I'd already been a breath worker for 10 years. I thought I had a really good understanding of breathing and diaphragmatic breathing and breath and all sorts of things, and I was quite experienced. And then when I had this little baby and was holding my son, I would tune into him, and I've always been incredibly empathic. I feel what is going on with someone. I was a body worker for 10 years before that, and so have been a body worker for 30 years now. And so I just held my son and looked all gooey-eyed at him and tuned into his breathing. You know, I just tuned into him and just noticed this bizarre thing that was happening with his diaphragm. I mean, it was beautiful, and yet it was different to how I'd been taught to breathe properly. And I realized that what was happening was he would breathe in and he would release, and then he would breathe out a little bit and he would release. And it wasn't quite so exaggerated as that, but there was this kind of accordion effect happening with his diaphragm. And normally I'd been taught that a full diaphragmatic breath is a full breath in and a release. But I noticed that he was then exhaling and then releasing. And so there was two diaphragmatic releases in one breath. And so I started exploring this within my own practice. And over the last 20 years, I have been playing with this and refining this and really noticing what it does in my body. And what I've discovered is that it has quite a huge effect on the nervous system. When I'm breathing in this way, so I fill, I release the diaphragm, I breathe out, and I release the diaphragm. Basically, the diaphragm has a still point. It has a place where it is not in any tension. And the diaphragm can, when we breathe in, stretches down, it pulls down, which draws breath into the body. The diaphragm pulls down. And then when we release, the diaphragm pops back to its still point. But then we still have at least a third of our lungs full of breath. So then when we can breathe out, the diaphragm stretches up. And then we release. The diaphragm pops back to its still point. So there is this reflex of the diaphragm that can work for both aiding bringing breath into the body and aiding expelling of breath. There is a passive piece of our breathing both at the top of the breath and at the bottom of the breath. And what I noticed, because I've had a lot of body work in my life, and I've had quite a lot of work on my psoas muscle. And the psoas muscle is our main fight or flight muscle. It sits on the front of the spine from about here, goes down through the diaphragm, down in here, into the hips and into the leg. It's our main running muscle, it's our main hip flexor, it's our main fight or flight muscle. And all breathing affects the psoas, because the psoas goes through the diaphragm. And I realized that when tuning in and doing my breathing with this full, what I call full diaphragmatic breathing, rather than what I had thought was full diaphragmatic breathing before, so this full inhalation, release, and full exhalation and release, I noticed there was a little impulse happening in my psoas muscle that made my body relax. And I realized that because the psoas muscle is our main fight or flight muscle, it's the muscle that gets affected by our fight or flight hormones and chemicals. Now, when we do this little release at the top of the breath and a release at the bottom of the breath, it's giving two impulses to the body, to the psoas, to tell the body that we're safe, that we can relax. You know, there's no tigers out there going to eat us, which is what our fight or flight was really there for. And within just this release. It's telling the body that we're safe. And when we have this twice in one breath, what happens is not only are we taking a much fuller breath because we're filling fully and then we're releasing, and then we're emptying fully and we're releasing. So we've got more breath coming in, we've got more breath going out, but also there's half as much effort going into the breath because there is a relaxation at the top of the breath and there is a relaxation at the bottom of the breath. And I was talking to a couple of breath workers recently who were telling me about their practice, and they were saying that they were full diaphragmatic breathing. And I asked them to demonstrate that. And they're both rebirthers and transformational breath workers. And they showed me this, which for me is only half a breath. You know, and so I showed them this other part of the breath, and they went. We played with it there and then, and they went away and played with it, and they've fed back some amazing results within their own practice. So my invitation to everybody is to explore this full inhalation. So you fill your belly, then you fill your back, you fill all the way up to your top of your chest and the back of your chest, and then you just let go. The breath falls out, and then you empty, empty until there's nothing left. And then you relax. Breath rushes back in. So you're really starting to work the diaphragm in both ways. And the more you do it, the more awareness you have of your diaphragm, and the better you will start to breathe in your times of unconscious breathing. So, yeah.
I really do understand that. That makes so much sense. And that's new for a lot of people to take on. That's really great. So, I feel it might be appropriate, especially having just shared that you've got some useful things for us to know about emotion.
Emotion, yes. Emotion is energy in motion. You know, we often talk about our feelings, but actually, when I ask people to describe their feelings, they generally tell me a story. That is not how they're feeling, that is how they're thinking, you know. Feelings are sensations, they are raw, they are pure, you know. They are impulses that life give us. They're chemical reactions that are happening in the body. But we wrap them up in a story, we give them meaning, we put a whole story around them, and then we're pushed and pulled around by this story, which is full of who's and how's and why's and all sorts of things like that. So when something happens to us and we have an emotional response, we go into the who, the how and the why and the what, rather than becoming utterly curious with the sensations that are happening in the body, which is the life that is happening in the body, which is the gift that emotion is bringing us. And because we stay in our story, we stay in this kind of, oh, something's not right. We kind of oppose the sensations. If it's a good emotion, you know, if it's love or it's something, we welcome it and we really enjoy it. You know, we make the most of it and we kind of milk that to a degree. But if it's something that we deem as a negative emotion, like fear or anger or something like that, then we tend to deal with it rather than, or we throw it around, you know, rather than let it fill us and make us bigger and stronger and letting it nourish us, we tend to oppose it, you know. We have two responses within life to anything, to any sensation. We either take it in and let it be beautiful for us and let it fill us and nourish us, or we oppose it. So we either take it in or we push it out, you know. And when we push it out and when we oppose it, we suffer. Bottom line, we suffer. And so when you have any emotional response or any emotional reaction, the invitation is to let go of the story, let go of the who, the how and the why, and become super curious with the sensations in the body. Notice where it is, notice how it feels, and then notice where you're in opposition to it. And when you notice which parts of you are welcoming it and which parts are in opposition, then notice the opposition and welcome the opposition, the sensation of opposition. Take that in, let that be beautiful. And you have to go through layers of, there will be opposition to doing that and opposition to doing that. And we have to go through layers of opposition until we come to a free place of just sitting in the beauty of the energy of what is here right now. And this is our natural state. Yeah.
So the answer to resistance is actually to welcome it in.
Yeah, let go of the idea that it is resistance, because it still is life. The only thing that is ever happening in us is life. All sensation is life, whether it be pain, whether it be anger, whether it be joy, whatever it is, it's all life. And if we oppose it, we suffer. If we welcome it, we just thrive.
I do feel you've given out a very, very powerful secret there, which is immediately applicable to absolutely everyone.
It's simple, it's not easy.
That's the beauty. We're dealing with really strong, entrenched behaviour patterns, aren't we?
Yeah, we for one, they're really habitual, and for two, we love the power of them. Actually, to let go of the who, the how, and the why, and to let go of the feelings that we get from that, the power. Often we feel really strong in anger or something, or we really identify with being really kind of in victim mode or something like that. The whole world is against me kind of thing. We identify with that, and that's a powerful sensation, you know. But if you take that energy and let it fill you and let it have you, and let go of the idea that it's whatever your brain is saying that it is, and just take it in as life and let it nourish you, let it fill you, let it have you, let it be beautiful, then suddenly something happens and it becomes utterly beautiful, and we free ourselves from this wheel of suffering, you know. Yeah.
Well, there we are. We literally have the capability of freeing ourselves from the wheel of suffering, and the primary quality that you're inviting us to invoke is curiosity.
Curiosity is utterly the key. Absolutely. Curiosity, and then beyond that, fascination. What that does is that hijacks the mind. It takes the mind out of thinking about all these reasons why and how, and it focuses it on receiving what is here, the life that is here. And when we come into this deep relationship with life, you know, then we free ourselves. And I mean, we can do this with all of our sensations, with all of our feelings. It's what I learned with being in chronic pain. You know, it's exactly the same mechanics of doing it. And the mechanics of it is, if you have a wonderful feeling in your body, then notice how you respond to this lovely feeling, you know. If you want to amplify it, you'll just kind of make it bigger. Yeah, we know we can do this. We can smile into it, we can breathe it in, we can make it bigger. And we can, if we superimpose what we're doing there on a feeling of, say, fear or anger, and superimpose what we're doing with joy and happiness and love, and so we actually, we bring curiosity, we breathe it in, we welcome it in, we take it in, we kind of wear it like a new suit of clothes. It changes the nature of it. It changes how we show up in it. Because the energy is always life, always life. But how we show up, and whether we oppose or whether we welcome it, is the key piece for everybody.
And this is the seat of our power, the choice.
Choice, absolutely. And in order to have choice, you need to know you have choice. Yeah.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Cheers.